All right, good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. This next case is for this small-scale map amendment 2403006 and land use plan 2312360. This is also known as the Special Hearts Farm. The future land use map request is from rural settlement 1 to 5 to institutional. And the associated zoning request is from A1 to PD. The details of the PD are in the staff report. That zoning request also includes a parking waiver. The location is at 4151 Avalon Road, generally located at the northeast corner of Avalon Road and Dangler Road in District 1. It is 18.36 acres. This is an image of the general vicinity with the existing uses. Again, existing future land use is rural settlement 1 to 5. Proposed future land use is institutional. Existing zoning is A1, and the requested zoning is PD. And this is an image of the existing site. Those are the details. Staff is available for any questions. The applicant is here as well. And I know this is the second go-around, so you guys will have seen this before. But we're ready for your questions.
Okay, thank you. If the applicant is present, please come to the podium, state your name, your address, whether you agree with staff's recommendation or any other information you'd like to present to us.
Thank you. Good morning.
Let us each introduce ourselves first before the time starts running. Rick Geller, Fishback Dominic, 1947 Lee Road in Winter Park.
Ed Williams, Williams Development Services, 29 East Pine Street. I'm substituting for Mr. Hall, who has a serious medical condition going on. So I will be presenting as if what Jim was primarily doing. By way of introduction, I have 46 years of land planning experience in Orange County. My first job out of school was with Orange County. I worked for the county for 14 years. The last 8 as the planning director. I've worked on the comp plan. I was the chairman of the DRC for various years, very familiar with the regulations and the comp plan of the county, and have done other work for other jurisdictions in a similar capacity, such as I'm still doing a continuing contract with the city of Winter Garden. I was asked to review the staff report. I did site visits. I've reviewed all the documents that were submitted. I've reviewed all the staff documents, and I've come to several conclusions. The information that the applicant submitted was sufficient for them to review the project. The staff, in my opinion, has done an excellent job on the comprehensive plan issue. They took the goals, objectives, and policies that applied to this set of facts and circumstances, applied those, and came to the conclusion that it is an appropriate use at that location, that it is consistent with the rural nature of the area. There are uses that would be found in a rural area, and their report was, I'd like to say, very complete and thorough. I went back through all the goals, objectives, and policies, and they had not omitted any, or I couldn't find any holes or errors in their analysis. So their opinion, which is consistent with our opinion, is that it is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the change would be appropriate. When we get to the plan unit development, you'll see that there are a substantial number of conditions. And as a plan unit development, this project has basically 4 components: an educational component, an agricultural component. It has a working component, teaching skills, and in my judgment, that the PUD, which was even more detailed than the plan amendment for the comprehensive plan, also was thorough, did not omit anything. And they recommended finding that it is consistent and compatible with the area and should be approved. And we support that position and would hope that you and the Board of County Commissioners would support that position. Last night at the community meeting was a lot more informative and less combative between the two sides. There has been a lot of concern, and I understand from the community, they are under siege from Horizons West. They are under siege in traffic and every component that they face. The concern that we're down to, the biggest issue, is the precedence that this sets for other applications. Well, I have a lot of faith in the staff, in the P&Z, and in the commission that they are not going to let a rural approval be used to justify urban encroachments into the rural settlement. I can't see that happening, and if that was proposed, if this project were approved, we would be there fighting to not have that happen, to have urban encroachments into that rural settlement. The uses in the project are all rural in nature. There isn't a loophole that would allow somebody to take this project and force the county to approve some type of urban development. The other issue that's come up is recently the county has given this, it had the rural settlement designation, but they gave the area a preservation designation too. The county commission voted to approve that additional protection. The district commissioner, the staff have shown that they have a willingness to put additional restrictions that would prohibit further development of urban uses or inappropriate uses within the service area or in the preservation district. What could be done? You could put a restriction on the amount of acres of certain uses that happen within that, and it would require a land use study by the planning staff to justify what acreages of what uses could be allowed within that district, but it would be fairly easily accomplished. And I think it would be supported by the people in the preservation district. I know that if this project gets approved, we'd be standing with that community and asking for those protections. We don't want urban uses coming next to this use because of the sensitivity of the use. So we would ask that you accept the staff's, what I feel is a very complete and an honest reckoning of the situation, and recommend approval of the land use change and the PD, and I'd be happy to answer any questions at the end if you have any. Thank you.
I'm going to go very quickly due to lack of time and also due to the fact that you've seen a lot of this already. We exhausted efforts to go down a different path. We were informed that we cannot even submit an application for a special exception, that it would not even be accepted. So this is the only path that lies before us right now. I want to give some assurance to the board that approval of Special Hearts Farm will not turn Avalon into Gotha. The DNA of Avalon and Gotha are completely different. In Avalon, the predominant future land use is 1 unit per 5 acres. It's 1 unit per 1 acre in Gotha. And one other quick point is that Special Hearts Farm will not generate residential subdivisions because there is 0 school capacity created by Special Hearts Farm, unlike the middle school in Gotha. As you know, institutional use is allowed in rural settlements. We have 17 policies that staff has identified, and of course it's consistent and compatible. We're a farm. We're a farm with farmers and livestock and crops, negligible traffic impact. And I will remind you that community residential homes, as defined by the Florida statutes, are allowed. They are a permitted use in the A1 district. There is already protection for Avalon in future land use policy 6.1.4 that institutional uses, while allowed in the rural service area, shall not be an impetus for additional urban development in the rural service area. I would submit that to deny an application based on the assumption that the county will violate the law in the future is speculative, it is arbitrary, it is irrational, and it's unlawful. And I'm asking you not to do that. And I would remind you that Alberto Vargas testified in August that that policy does provide protection. Now, there are a number of ideas that are floating around for addition to Vision 2050 for additional protection for the Avalon rural settlement. And so you could put in language like this: any property designated for institutional use shall not be considered as a basis for further institutional designations or to justify any other non-residential uses or any other increase in residential density. That's something that could follow the approval of this application. The PD sets appropriate standards, has already been testified. In fact, in our attempt to compromise with the Avalon community, we've reduced our development program by 40%. That's what Mr. Hall informed me. I really am appreciative of all the comments that were made in August. And you'll recognize some of your own quotations here. I went through the video. These are direct quotations about the great service that Special Hearts Farms provides to the community, citizens, families. It's a benefit to the community, and then it belongs right where they're proposing. This is the perfect place. This is compatible. This is a consistent use. It's a wonderful project, a benefit to the community. This property is in a much better location than the Blueberry Farm. This is a good place for this nonprofit. Both dreams can coexist. This is the perfect spot. These were statements made by this board, and I'm deeply appreciative for all of those. And I'm also deeply appreciative for staff's strong recommendation of approval. So again, if you want additional protection for Lake Avalon, you can recommend that protections be studied for inclusion in Vision 2050. But our request here is that you find the application consistent with the comprehensive plan, compatible with the area, and to recommend adoption of the applications for institutional future land use and PD zoning per the land use plan. And if I may please reserve the remainder of my time for rebuttal.
Thank you. That brings us to the public comment period of this hearing for this item. Do we have any speaker cards, Jason?
We do. Approximately about 10. First speaker is going to be Stephen Schmidt, followed by Lisa Schmidt.
And we're going to divert our time to Jennifer Elliott.
Okay,
Stephen and Lisa.
so Jennifer Elliott.
Yes. Shall we release the time now?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
Right, please come to the podium, state your name, your address, and you'll have, how do we usually do this, like 1 extra minute?
Right, so we have two people.
That would be 2 extra minutes? Is that how we do it?
Fred Pryor. It's Fred. Okay, so it'll be 2 additional minutes, 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Elliott. My address is 8413 Sunset Drive, Orlando, Florida, 32819. I just have a couple of notes. I just wanted to bring up, and I know you guys, we were here before, that we've met with the Avalon HOA and county staff multiple occasions. We have had 2 community meetings, which were asked and required of us. We have compromised many times and reduced our building sizes, as our attorney stated, by 40%. And we've reduced the number of cottages to accommodate the Avalon community's concerns. We've also offered to install privacy hedges, fences, if that's a concern as well. We are compatible and consistent with the comprehensive plan and have full county recommendation. Our FAR is less than 0.05, and 2.0 is allowed for our 18 acres. Although we did try to go through the special exception route, which was mentioned, and even if we could have gone through the special exception route, it would not have excluded others from trying to go through that route and use that as a precedent as well. I know this is a great concern for the Avalon rural community. We want to work with the Avalon community. We want to be good neighbors. We've said that from the beginning. We want to belong. We want to have a place that our farmers can live and work as other farmers do. And lastly, and most importantly, we are a farm. We belong in a rural area. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Julie Trovalian? Julie? No. Okay. So then Thad? Following Thad will be Kathy Sheeran.
Please state your name, your address, and you'll have 3 minutes for your comments.
All right, Thad Trogger, 17307 Old Country Lane, Winter Garden, Florida. As I do believe this is good, you know, my oldest is autistic and I would love to see something like this, but they say that it's not going to bring other applicants to come and try to put it in. We're tired of being here, taking off our work, working hard, trying to keep this out. This is going to start a precedent. There's already 3 or 4 different people down the road from me that's already said, if this passes, I'm going to do the same thing. The RV park's going to come back and fight you for it. The church on Rex Road's going to start for it. There's a church trying to go put in on my road that's going to start. This will start, and we're going to be here once or twice a week trying to fight this off for the next one. Even with, they say, how, like, if they can put in, like last night they said they could tap off on how many, you know, institutions they can put in. Why wasn't that 0 from the beginning? Now we're sitting here trying to fight this one off. Then it's going to be a next one, and it's just going to be an ongoing fight. So with that, you know, they talked about the Gotha last time and how they said that was a middle school and it's different. But at the end of the day, they did fight, and they used that as the reason to get everything else put in. How long is it going to be before the Avalon Rural Settlement's going to be down to nothing and we can't drive around? Like, we ride our horses out there. How long can we ride our horses when there's 5 other institutions going in, 1,000 cars a day going down our Phil C. Peters or Avalon Road? It's going to happen, and you guys know it's going to happen. If this did fit, I do believe the farming and all that does fit. But if it fit the way they say it is, then the zoning would have said, okay, we'll do the special exception. They're not. They're saying that this is going to be an institution for a reason, and that doesn't fit our Avalon Rural Settlement. And with that, the traffic too, they said last night, 36 cars. There's 30 residents there. Their parents are gonna come all the time and see them. The food for the kitchen, because they're gonna eat out there, they're gonna be semi-trucks coming in and out. Then they're gonna have the farmer's market. What is that, 200-300 cars? You go downtown Winter Garden, you can't find parking for their farmer's market. What happens if that is coming in and out, 200-300 cars every Saturday, when people are trying to cross Avalon with their horses to go through the trails and ride through the conserve that is made for our horses. I like the program. I think the farming's great, but I don't understand why the farming can't stay there, and then the part that turns it into institution goes 2 miles down the road where it's not in our zone. It's not that far. It wouldn't be hard to bus back and forth every day. I just don't understand why we have to keep fighting for what we pay a lot of money for to live out in this little area, and we're fighting every day and taking off work. I'm tired of taking off work and using my vacation days to fight stuff like this, and if this gets it, it's going to be the same thing. Every week we'll be in here fighting our stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Following Kathy Sheeran will be Bobby Beagles.
Good morning. Thank you. Kathy Sheeran, 2450 Williams Road, Winter Garden, Florida, 34787. The applicant is highly aware that we support and we applaud their mission to provide a meaningful and productive life for their participants, and do not object to the agricultural portions of their project, such as raising animals, growing gardens and crops, and hands-on learning activities. But as a 20-year resident of the Lake Avalon Rural Settlement, I strongly object to the zoning change to planned development and the future land use to institutional for the entire parcel. This is not an appropriate change in a rural settlement. This will open the door to further development, and what happened in the growth of rural settlement will happen here. Therefore, we are requesting the Planning and Zoning Board recommend for denial the portions of their applications that require these flume and zoning changes. You're considering adding additional protections to the rural settlement, but how long is that going to take? In the meantime, the floodgates are going to be open, and we have several people waiting in the wings, ready to pounce on our rural settlement. The future land use and zoning change to plan development institutional is not compatible or consistent with the development patterns of the existing Lake Avalon rural settlement. Once these entitlements are given, they forever stay with the parcel. The next owner can capitalize on this planned development, and who knows what will be built there then. The county's adopted rural settlement policies were implemented to protect the rural character, heritage, and history of our rural settlement. Approval of this application as submitted does not protect those. We would appreciate your support in helping to preserve and protect the integrity and future of the Lake Avalon rural settlement and recommend denial of the Flumen zoning request and allow for the agricultural activities that keep the parcel zoned rural settlement 1 to 5. And it doesn't seem fair that this organization, in order to achieve their dreams, has to destroy the dreams of our rural settlement residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Following Bobby Beagles will be Matthew Galeano.
Good afternoon. Is it afternoon yet?
Not quite.
Gentlemen, thank you, and ladies, thank y'all for volunteering your time to come down here and listen to us. I'm hoping this is the last time I have to come here. As y'all know, we have been coming from,
Please state your name and address for the record.
you want my address, 21302 Fort Christmas Road, Christmas, Florida. I'm the past president of Orange County Farm Bureau. I'm a past president of Orange County Cattlemen Association. My family has been in the cattle business since 1951. I quit as executive director of Orange County Farm Bureau where I could go on their board and spend more time helping kids that cannot help themselves, kids that need somebody and some place they can go when their parents pass away. This opens the door. I didn't spend 3 years in Tallahassee working for the Speaker of the House not to know the back steps to get something done. This has been outrageous, what we have had to pay to get here today. I'm on the board for one reason, to speak up for those that cannot speak for themselves. Anybody that would give up a place for a kid to have a home once their parents pass away, I don't know. It happened to my family. I would have never expected my niece to be stuck in a wheelchair for 12 years, but she was. She couldn't talk. She couldn't walk. She went to school. My parents pushed her in a wheelchair a quarter mile to the road every morning for her to catch a school bus. When she got off that school bus, one of us pushed her back. She would be screaming to the top of her lungs until she got her hand on her bunny rabbit that she would hold up next to her chest, and she was happy. Let me say, I have spoke for FFA, I have spoke for 4-H, I have received the toppest awards that those two organizations can give away. As a member of Special Heart Farms, I am proud to stand here today and say, thank y'all, please push this thing on. We need the kids, we need the place. We've outgrown where we're at. I can assure you it will not hurt the community. I can assure you that these kids will love to be able to plant their gardens and sell their products that they raise. And I'll take it to the U.S. Supreme Court if it needs to be. And I'm definitely set that we have fought and fought for the last 5 years. And it's time we have quit fighting. It's time that these kids have a place to call home. And thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Matthew followed by Crystal Seidel.
Hello,
Please state your name, your address.
my name is Matt Galiotto. I stay at 3801 Rex Drive, Winter Garden, Florida, in Avalon. I am in opposition of this project, but I am not totally against it. Let me explain why. What I am in opposition of is the rezoning of this property. It's a very slippery slope. We're constantly in here fighting. I was just here 2 weeks ago against the RV park, spoke with the BZA about that special exemption. We were here with the church, with the Mormon church. I know there's other projects that were going to be coming up that we're going to have to come and still stand up for our neighborhood to keep it rural. We're fighting all the time too, just like this gentleman is for his project, which I completely understand. I don't want to come in here once every 2 weeks, to be able to have to speak up for my community's behalf. What I am against, like I said, is the rezoning of the property. If they sell the property, say they don't even build on it, and you guys approve it, they could sell it the next day, and it can be developed on. It's a planned development. They could sell it down the road. Any other developer could come in. What I am against is the living quarters on property. If they built living quarters off property and just made an equestrian center, it would completely fit. They could bus the kids in, have them, I want the kids to be around horses. I want them to be around animals. But to have the kids living there and have the staff living there, and then having all these people driving in every day to visit their kids, sorry, I'm a little nervous. It's just a lot of traffic. Like I said, I want the kids to be able to be around animals. I think it's good for them. But just living there and having all the people on site is a lot. Thank you for your time, committee. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
So following
next speaker.
Crystal Seidel is next. Following Crystal will be Maria Casanova Baker.
Hello, my name is Crystal Seidel. I live at 17133 Alp Street, Winter Garden, Florida. And I'm opposed to the long-term care request for these people. It's more like a nursing home, the way they describe it. If someone in their family can't take care of them, they'll put them there. And how long are they going to be there? Is it going to be forever? People do die. I'm definitely opposed to the living facilities that are added to this. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. And our next speaker,
And then following Maria will be Jamie Galliardo.
Good morning and thank you. My name is Maria Stella Casanova Baker, 16112 Sand Hill Road, Winter Garden, 34787. As a resident of the rural settlement, I strongly object to the zoning change and plan development, future land use to institutional for the entire 18.89 acre parcel. This is not appropriate change in rural settlement. This will open the door to further development, and what happened in Gotha will happen here. You know that. It's going to happen. It opens the floodgates to everything. There is no county-provided water or sewer to this parcel. This parcel will rely on septic and well for 50 students, 20 staff, and their proposed 30 full-time residents. That 18.89 acres will be eligible to be split into 3 plus 5 acres parcel with 1 well and 1 septic system per parcel, having 18,000 square feet of multiple dwellings and 15,000 square foot training facility, educational facility, a 3,500 square foot event building, a caretaker cottage, and 12,000 square foot barn all require substantially more septic tanks and groundwater usage than what a rural settlement 1/5 will require. There are other sites in Orange County more suitable for this type of land use and zoning change, most notably the 14 acre they already own in Mount Dora. That site is not a rural settlement, it is a rural area, and building there will not create a material change to any Orange County rural settlement. The county adopted rural settlement policies were implemented to protect the rural character, heritage, and history. This is not or shouldn't be an emotional or safe-faced decision. It's a moral and integrity decision based on the promises made to the residents who have trusted the system in keeping us safe. This is why I moved there. This is why I wanted to live there, so I can stay safe and be able to, like I do now, teach children, also special needs children, to horseback ride. They do it beautifully, and they excel very, very nicely on that. Been doing it for about 10 years now. My husband has a sister that is a special need. She is 65, and she lives in a facility just like that. We're not opposed to what that facility provides to them. That's not it. I have volunteered tirelessly on that facility that my sister-in-law lives. It's absolutely beautiful what they do. That's not it. It doesn't fit in our rural settlement. It doesn't fit. The change of the FLOM change will change forever where we wanted to live in. I appreciate your time. Have a great day.
Thank you.
So Jamie will be the last speaker that I have on my list.
Okay. Please state your name, your address, and you'll have 3 minutes for your comments.
Jamie Galeotto, 3801 Rex Drive in Winter Garden. I am also a resident of the Lake Avalon Rural District. Okay, so I'm here to beg you guys to not rezone this property to planned unit development. It is a disaster to do something like that. The organization, Special Hearts, does, of course, have a good heart behind it, but in our neighborhood, rezoning this is opening floodgates. I was just here 2 weeks ago talking to the board, the planning board, and pretty much asking them to deny the RV park, which unanimously, thankfully, they did. But they did appeal that decision, and it's going back to the commission. My main thing is that once you get these type of approvals in a neighborhood like this, everybody's like, well, what about me? Well, why can't I do it? What did I do? What are you being, singling us out? And unfortunately, with this kind of project, with the planned unit development, you're rezoning that, like everybody is saying before me that's in opposition. This is a forever change. We don't have a planned unit development in Lake Avalon. And also, I saw something flash on the screen earlier, and it showed Institution, which is adjoining this property. And I don't know why that did or whatnot, but that is actually the conserve, and it is county managed, I believe. So it's not, in cahoots with actually Institution where something like this is being ran. Pretty much everybody in the Lake Avalon rural settlement that I spoke to is in opposition of this planned unit development change. As a resident, I am deeply saddened that this is actually being pressed on. I understand that everybody has good intentions. This is not a fit for us. There is a voluntary HOA in our neighborhood, and I understand if Special Hearts has spoken to our president that is in that neighborhood. But unfortunately, since it is voluntary, not everybody is under that voice. I know that our president did voice that she was in strict opposition, and I do believe she is ill today, and I'm not speaking for her, but I do believe she also was in opposition of this, and it's the rezoning. It's really, please, take into consideration of protecting our rural settlement and protecting this area from being under siege. And like the gentleman just said, the overflow of their property, they're outgrowing it. That's also a concern. And yes, they do own another property. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I believe that completes the the speakers that had signed cards, but I see someone raising their hand. Have you already spoken, or did you give your time to someone else? Okay, well, I see at least one or two people that want to speak, so please, please go ahead and queue up along the wall as you wait for your turn to speak. And at this point, ma'am, please state your name, your address, and you will have 3 minutes to make your comments.
Thank you so much. My name is Mildred Fernandez. My address, 6029 Lake Point Drive, Orlando. I'm a former Orange County Commissioner for District 3, and I am appalled, just appalled, of listening the arguments that some of the residents brought when I'm thinking that we're all Christians. I do understand, Mr. Gray, that it's here, and it's a representative here. When we have special needs communities, how difficult it is to get funding. When appropriations are made by the state of Florida, like they have gone through, they have to be used specifically for the place and for the purposes that are being assigned. I have the honor and the pleasure to visit farms, and it is a beautiful, just a beautiful concept that people with vision understand the need when we have special needs children. I wish that we could have more of those in the state of Florida. As a former Orange County Commissioner, when we see something coming to our site to be approved, we look into based on base case. Sometimes, because of the need of the community, we have to do exceptions. And these people has been for years now trying to look what is the best setting for the community that they are going to serve. This is not only educational, but it's also agricultural. It encompasses so many diversity in terms of the specialty that they want to look into, that what we need to look is what is the purpose, what is the site, and most important, the appropriations that they were assigned specifically for that purpose. I am in total on agreement on what they want to do. And I wish that more sites of those we could have in the state of Florida. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker, please state your name, your address, and you will have 3 minutes for your comments.
My name is Janet Davis, and I reside at 3233 Avalon Road, which is in the rural settlement. I think, we all can point to experiences where future commissions have changed what was put in place as protections previously. We know it can be done. And that is one of my big fears. And knowing that these flume changes increase the value of the property. It will make it more valuable to sell to somebody else later. That's not fair to the rest of us in the settlement who adhere to what the settlement was originally created for. And I'm afraid it's the one chip that starts to shrink the size of our community. And yes, we will be barraged with more. We already have the fatigue, as stated by Matt. I haven't seen a traffic study on this. However, if you have 70 people who are coming, the 50 people that come every day for the programs and the 20 people that are staff, and then you have 30 overnight residents, that tells me it's about 100 people. So if they did a traffic study, I don't know how they came up with their numbers, but that sounds like it could be a good number of trips per day on several failing roads that are in the settlement and have already caused grave problems, including fatalities. Avalon Road is very dangerous. And it doesn't sound like much, oh, it's just 60 trips a day or whatever. One more car on that road is just not welcome. And while I support what they're doing, I can't honestly believe that they can't find another site where we don't have to have these situations. So, I'm torn. I have an autistic son too. He's an adult. I figured it out with him. But we can't ruin the settlement and punish the rest of us for the desires of their program. So I think they just need to find a place where it's more suitable. I thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, and our next speaker, please state your name, your address, and you will have 3 minutes for your comments.
My name is Ellen Crames, and I live at 1032 Wentworth Court, Longwood, Florida, 32750. My son, Justin Crames, is 28, and he's been a farmer for about 3 years. I also want to say that to clear something up, this is more of an independent living settlement, not a nursing home. So I want to state that. The other thing I want to state is not only am I his parent, I'm a guardian. I'm also a legal guardian. And what is happening here with Special Hearts Farm, our guardianship community has been buzzing because we're so happy to have something, another resident we can place our children. My son's group home is closing. And now we're trying to find new housing. And the group homes do close. And what you see out here when you see the parents and loved ones of the special needs or the Special Heart Farm, that's not the usual thing that we get. The parents or clients that I get are the ones that are abandoned by their parents, the ones that are abandoned by their families. And that's another reason why we need upstanding, good homes, whereas guardians, when we go before the judge, because part of our job is to place them in a proper residential setting. That's our job, as well as financial and medical care. So it's very important we have good homes to put them in. Unfortunately, sometimes we put them in places not good. But we need to be able to do this. We need the Special Heart Farm. And as much as people say, well, parents are going to visit, yes, parents will visit. But unfortunately, like I said, part of the reality of the special needs community, they've been abandoned. That's why we're here. That's why the guardians are here. That's why Special Heart Farm is here, to give them the family that they lost or the family that just forsaken them. I can't tell you how many times I've called the parents of my client to tell them about their child or their loved one to get oh, well, it's not my problem anymore. He's yours now, click. So please consider putting the Special Heart Farm. Please consider the zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name, address, and you'll have 3 minutes for your comments.
Thank you. My name's John Turan. I live at 953 Lagoon Drive in Oviedo, 32765. I want to speak about abandonment for a minute. Geraldo Rivera, who do we remember? We all remember Geraldo Rivera. You remember his first job, how he got famous? By doing an expose of what we used to do with these people. We used to warehouse them in abandoned office buildings where they were left naked in their own feces. without time and attention. And that's how Geraldo became famous. Now, when I look out here, I see well-intentioned people fighting like hell for their neighbor and their community, which you should, sir. We should all fight like hell for our community, and I thank you guys for doing that, because you're doing your best to protect the community. But we have to do our homework. I come from a business aspect of this equation, so I've developed 6 assisted living facilities, nursing homes, independent living facilities. You have to do your homework. Anybody who here has complained about traffic, have you done your own traffic study? It costs $0. Drive to the current community at Special Hearts Farms and check out the traffic. I've been there a handful of times as a volunteer. I park in front of the front door, folks. So think about that for a second. Please do it so that when you are forming your arguments, you have good information. You have good intentions. I completely agree for protecting your neighborhood, but we're scared of ghosts that do not exist when we're talking about traffic. The other thing, since I've had to do this for the 6 facilities that I've developed, and people showed up and didn't want that community in their backyard, something you have to think about is, one gentleman said that these parents are going to come visit their kids. Their parents are no longer alive. The average special needs adult who gets placed, their parents are in their 80s. They are living in another community, an assisted living facility, for example. These guys are not driving. Their parents are not visiting, sadly. The majority of these students come in on a van, a 15-passenger van. 2 or 3 vans come in, get dropped off, and go out. So there is no traffic. And the last thing I want to leave you with is, as far as the very few number of residents that are going to actually live there, someone just did the math on the cars for staffing and the people that live there. You have to divide it by 24 hours, okay? Divide the traffic that is in your mind. First of all, go find out what the traffic is by parking your car. They're not going to stop you by parking your car out in front of their facility and see how much traffic comes by. But it's over 24 hours, folks. There's not going to be any traffic. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next and final speaker, please state your name and address, and you'll have 3
So
minutes
I
for your
believe, if
comment.
this is Lisa, I believe you gave time already.
Oh, did she want it? No. It's Julie Trevelyan.
Right, but did you not donate time, or?
I did, but then she didn't want it.
It's up to you, Chairman, I don't know.
You know, I know that the speaker that you donated time to ended up having like a minute and a half left, so they didn't use the time, so go ahead.
I won't be long. I don't really have anything planned. Julie Trevelyan, 940 Tildenville School Road, Winter Garden, Florida. I have a son, Chase, that has Down syndrome, and he's been at the farm for about 5 years. And, you know, I guess my intent is just to say that Chase has always loved the farm. He's learned a lot at the farm. He's made friends at the farm. As a parent, I've been as much of an advocate as I can be. I volunteer at the farm, you know, for fundraising. I go to the farm the property that we had prior to this, that we still own in Mount Dora, where we were not able to get approval. And I volunteer driving the tractor and mowing the fields. And I mean, we're all trying our best to do the most that we can for our kids. And it's just really has been frustrating that we can't find a place to do this. And I attended the meeting in August when, you know, the commissioners or the assistant commissioners, I don't even really understand this whole process, but, you know, that everybody spoke highly of what we were trying to do. And then I felt like we came up with this special exemption. And I just felt like everybody's just was relieved, like, oh my gosh, we can come up with some kind of compromise agreement. And I sat behind Kathy, and I think the other lady was Laura, who is in charge of the Homeowners Association for Avalon. And she came and sat next to Kathy, and both their heads were tilted in talking to each other. And I'm like, gosh, I wish I could take a picture. It was just, there had been so much division. And then we came up with what we thought was a solution. And then they were happy. They were, you know, that Avalon was happy that they didn't have to fear the institutional zoning, and we were happy because it looked like we could make this happen. And now to be back where we are, it's just really frustrating and scary. And so, I don't know, I just hope that there's some kind of, provisions that can be put in place that would protect, the Avalon residents that are fearful, and that we can try to do something that helps the special needs community, because there's not a lot of places out there for them. So, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I see another hand has been raised, but you've already spoken. No, thank you. Now, I believe that the applicant's counsel had requested, and Jason, did you notice how much time they had? I think it was about 5 minutes and 15 seconds or something. Yeah, 5 minutes and 21 seconds, yeah.
And I will try to be brief. Traffic issues, interesting. There is a traffic study. There will be another one in conjunction with the detailed work on the PD as we go through the process. Churches, the RV park that was proposed, they generate tons of traffic in comparison to this use. It's not even close. Traffic projecting is voodoo science, and computers can spit out anything you want. But when you look at what the gentleman said, these kids are transported by vans in groups. It's not individual cars. And that actual number will be determined at a later date. It will be on septic tank and wells. It's a rural area. Winter Garden could get sewer and water lines down here. If we extend sewer and water lines down to this, then every developer in the world will want to be hooking into them and absolutely changing the area. Gotha is a unique area. I wish I had the time to explain all the ins and outs, but I'll give you the quick version. The city of Ocoee was annexing large parts of the rural settlement, so the county had to change the minimum lot size in Gotha to half acre in order to stem the tide of Ocoee annexing all of the Gotha settlement. It is an old and historic village that developed according to a certain plat. In the last couple of years, the Board of County Commissioners has denied 2 churches in that rural settlement area. A Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu company that wanted to come in and create an urban development. While everyone uses Gotha as a bad example of what could happen, you will find that the county commission is standing by those folks and denying these uses on a regular basis. And yes, they keep coming, and they don't want to come to the meetings. We're not going to want to come to the meetings to fight them, but we will. The other issue on semi-trucks, we will not be having semi-trucks delivering foods and other services to that property. And that's pretty much my share of the issues. And I will be happy to answer any questions you have.
There's a statement made that the cap should be 0 institutional. That's not, there is no cap right now. There could be in Vision 2050, but there is none now. And you saw the comp plan provisions that do allow institutional uses in a rural settlement. To every statement that was made by the opponents that this is going to open the floodgate and all that, I would direct your attention again to Future Land Use Policy 6.1.4. That policy is dispositive. That policy is dispositive. You cannot speculate what's going to happen in the future. You cannot deny this application based on some speculative future application. That's arbitrary. That is irrational. To say that 6.1.4 will not be enforced. It will be enforced. It is enforced. Special Hearts Farm has a long-term vision and time horizon. It is a well-funded, well-established nonprofit organization. The idea is to provide forever homes for these individuals for when their parents become extremely elderly or die. This is not going to be flipped. This is not a property flipping scheme like someone was trying to paint this. That is completely contrary to the facts here. And just one correction, and I think a lot of us have referred to these as the kids. These are adults. These are adults who have aged out of Orange County Public Schools. I should also add that the septic will be an advanced septic system with the highest level of nitrogen removal possible. Again, the Blueberry property was brought up, but again, we have an issue of chemical spraying and the bird cannons and all the other reasons why we pivoted from that site. The uses here that were objected to are already permitted. The community residential homes are allowed in every zoning district. Also, according to Florida statutes, they're allowed. All right, so I'm going to leave you with that. I'm going to ask you to do the right thing here. Do what you know in your heart is right here and provide a forever home for these special needs adults and recommend approval of the land use and the zoning that's been requested in our applications. I thank you very much.
Thank you. That completes the public comment period. Let's bring it back to this commission for comments. And Commissioner Wiggins, you are the first on my list.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody that showed up to speak regarding this very important request. First, I have some questions for staff with regard to PD zoning. Jason or your other staff member, if somebody in the community wants to create a subdivision of large tracts, which I understand in Avalon Rural Settlement is minimum 5-acre home sites, if they wanted to create and had a piece of property that was big enough, would they have to go through a PD zoning process to create 10 5-acre home sites or subdivision?
If in the Avalon Rural Settlement? Well,
Yes.
No, because, first of all, that wouldn't be permitted under, this PD only approves what's in the PD. So anyone else who bought this property would only be able to do what's in this PD. If
I'm referring to any property.
Hypothetically, if someone purchased the property across Avalon Road.
But if they want to create a property of large home sites that are 5-acre, would they have to go through a PD zoning?
Well, they wouldn't be able to do that with an institutional future land use to create a subdivision.
Well, forget
PD.
the institutional land use. I'm just talking about.
So they would need to change the future land use to some residential category under the existing code. And then they
Right.
would need some kind of R1, R1A zoning or something of that sort, but that would come before you to determine.
They'd have to comply with the density limitations of the rural settlement for Lake Avalon Rural Settlement, correct?
That's correct, right, but they wouldn't be really creating a subdivision in that case. It would still be 1 to 5.
Okay.
And just to add to that, a PD would only be required for residential development if a development was over 10% of the overall acreage of the rural settlement or more than 25 residential units.
Okay, so if they wanted to create one that had 25 dwellings, which would all be 5-acre, right, for the rural?
Well, if there was a future land use amendment associated with it to do, the
Okay.
1-to-1 or something like that.
So the point is that even in rural settlements, you have to go through a PD zoning if you meet a certain criteria. I know that you do in the rural settlement that I live in, Tangerine, as well. Could somebody read to me the policy that the attorney referred to, 6.1.4, that would have application should another development come in for a request?
So it reads, institutional uses such as wastewater treatment and landfill facilities, whether operated by a local government or private enterprise, while allowed in the rural service area, shall not be an impetus for additional urban development in the rural service area.
So then, through that policy, that land use policy, that would prevent a similar request automatically coming in? Or what would be the application there?
No, in terms of the protections that perhaps could happen if this project is approved or if it's not approved, there would be better language than this to protect or to put a limit on the amount of institutional uses, or to spell out the criteria for compatibility or where it's appropriate. But this policy would not prohibit future similar uses.
Okay, and what about with regard to churches in the rural settlement? Do they all require a special exception?
Yes. I have to look at the use table. I don't have, no. off the top of my head.
Which this applicant could not go through, so you have those protections there.
Right.
Also, the other property that's owned by Special Hearts is not in Mount Dora, by the way, but it is in Orange County, and it's immediately south, not directly in the Tangerine development, but I can tell you, speaking on behalf of Tangerine Rural Settlement and past president of the Tangerine Improvement Society and resident for 22 years, we strongly supported the request in that area. The rural settlements in Orange County all have different criteria. You have your criteria, which is great, and I have supported your rural settlement and in the past and several occasions as a co-chairman of the Rural Settlement Alliance. In this instance, there is the possibility of your district commissioner adding a criteria that would explicitly add an additional requirement within the Lake Avalon Rural Settlement, just as there are in the Tangerine Rural Settlement and the other 19 or 20 other rural settlements that are all in the Orange County Land Use Plan that have unique requirements. And that is a methodology. I would like to say I had ex parte communication with representative of Special Hearts Farm and their attorney, and there is the possibility, and I think your district commissioner would aid you in that regard, that would absolutely prevent creating this so-called precedent that you're talking about by adding language to the county's land use plan. With that, I would like to say that I certainly support the request. I've been to the Special Hearts Farm. I think it's much needed in our area, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Commissioner Evans.
Thank you and good morning. Thank you all for your continued participation. I know that several members of the audience articulated the need to be present at so many meetings, and sometimes it does take all of that, so I appreciate your endurance in this process. I must say I share the thoughts of Commissioner Wiggins. I think it's important to raise that I grew up in the same home that was like at the end of the block from an independent living facility for special needs adults. And they were wonderful neighbors and always have been. And I think that there's an important understanding we have to have in a community is that, you know, we all thrive together. And I understand that the rural setting has charm that is rightfully desired to be preserved. But I have heard a lot over the last couple of meetings, and I share the sentiment of one of the last speakers that when we left here last time, with a special exception, everybody was fine with its location and operations. And when the special exception option was not viable, then the project became problematic again. And I disagree with that sentiment. I think that the applicants have put forward a very thoughtful and a, you know, costly approach to making place for residents of our community who deserve to be welcome just like everybody else. So I'm sorry that there's not a procedural language that gives everybody in the audience good confidence that the protections they seek long-term are in fact codified. However, I agree that I think that there's a process and procedures that can perhaps address this one or go forward, but for the purpose of finding an opportunity for us to facilitate progress, I'm prepared to vote in favor of this project.
Thank you. Commissioner Gray.
I was kind of hoping to hear from Commissioner David at the end of
I'll
the
be
line.
more than happy to start speaking.
Please
so,
go ahead.
Thank
I
you.
would prefer to hear from you
Thank you.
first.
So, as you guys know, I suggested the special exception last commission meeting. I did, and I still do believe that there's many aspects of this that does meet a special exception criteria. However, what I learned going through this is that everything is very black and white. The county will not see gray. And when you read your current protections for the Avalon Rural Settlement, there is opportunity for what's going on right now to continue to happen. Like, this will not be the last, like everybody's hoping. But what is sprung from this is that Orange County has made an incredible effort with the commissioner for this district to strengthen the protections for Avalon moving forward. And that's what has to happen. Because without better language, the chances of future PDs and land use changes occurring will always continue. There's nothing that puts a limit on institutional now, which you have an opportunity to do that. You have an opportunity to put limits on many different land changes, uses throughout the Avalon Rural District. You could even tighten up the language for them. You know, right now it's a predominant 1 to 5. That doesn't clarify an exact. So while there's still a lot of large parcels out there, trying to determine that factor would make it difficult for us. But, you know, I chose to be a part of this commission to represent the rural districts. I hold it dear to my heart. I've grown up, born and raised West Orange County, grew up around Windermere, Gotha. I live in Gotha. I still have a farm there, there's probably about 2 or 3 of us left. And I realize how things changed in my life. And Avalon is Gotha in 1990, you know, like it is identical. So I don't want to see those impacts happen. I wish I knew this whole text amendment deal where we could have at one time protected Gotha a lot better. But we did not. But it is a perfect opportunity because you have an applicant who tried so hard to get the special exception. I mean, extremely hard, met with the county several times. You had the county also trying to make that work. But at the end of the day, the zoning manager deemed that they did not meet the criteria. And that is where it stopped. Special Hearts is a great organization. There's not enough people like this in the world doing these things. So what they do is an amazing thing. This is not an ideal situation for me to vote. I mean, it's probably one of the hardest votes I've ever had because I'm a strong supporter of rural. And I'm a strong supporter of what they do because it is amazing. I believe that this is the best fit for them. There's not a lot of places like this left in West Orange County. They do want to stay in their neighborhood. But as much as everyone, the commissioner's office, myself, the applicant, and other members of Orange County staff tried very hard to accommodate not changing a future land use designation. As it stands now, staff recommended it because the language that you currently have that everybody felt protected the rural district has some gaps. And you have the opportunity moving forward from it's already started, initiated from the applicant to ensure that what they do will, will not impede on the protections. They are working hard. I've seen some language go around of some drafts. Alberto, maybe you could speak to that, since I know that that's been something, you're working on, but it's going to take the community's involvement with communicating with the commissioner, expressing, ideas that could help to create a better situation for Avalon, so that the residents don't have to be down here all the time fighting these things. Everybody can apply, as Jason always mentions. However, the staff recommendation means a lot to us, and if there's language that does not give them that opportunity to recommend approval, that is what is needed at this time for Avalon.
Good morning, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the board. I'm glad to be here. Just to add substance to your question regarding not only the responsibility on the staff side for the review of the application that stands on its own merits, you have a pretty straightforward recommendation in that regards. I think the different layers and dimension of this particular application has to do with predictability of Lake Avalon rural settlement and how to keep the character of the rural settlement as it continues to evolve over time extremely predictable as a rural settlement without watering down or changing its character altogether. So the question at hand has to do with a specific policy that could strengthen that predictable result of how the rural settlement will continue to grow over time and maintain its character at the same time, which is the challenge. So the specific future land use of institutional that is in front of all of us and the specific policy that has been referred to today, which is 614, makes a very direct reference of any applicability or adoption of a institutional within, in this particular case, the Lake Avalon rural settlement should not serve as an impetus. It should not be used as a precedent, referenced specifically as a precedent for a second application of institutional within the Lake Avalon rural settlement to justify a future application of another institutional use in another parcel. So that's the basis of that particular reference. However, it is not the current language, and I'm also going to refer to not only that policy, but also policy FLU 114, which I made reference during our last hearing, which basically explicitly says within the rural settlements, it says that institutional future land use designation may be located within rural settlements on a limited basis. And that was my pause, which is also consistent with 614, so that it should not be thought of proliferation of that particular future land use within a rural settlement. There are drafts out there of another future land use within the rural settlement goals, and more specifically about Lake Avalon rural settlement that could potentially become part of the adoption of Vision 2050, just like we're moving forward with the creation of a preservation district of Lake Avalon rural settlement to continue to create predictability of its current character of the rural settlement as it continues to grow over time and evolve over time. So this particular policy, without making it a point of discussion today, is in very different draft forms in which it will identify different uses that may be related to that particular future land use of institutional, limitation perhaps even on acreage, that it would not be able to be less than X amount of acres. And be very predictable in that sense. So that is what I think we're all, at this particular time, staff, the commissioner, And you, in the very near future, when Vision 2050 gets adopted, as part of the rural settlement compromise that we have, in terms of their preservation, new language that will look into that level of much more detail and predictability. That's the extent that I can probably complement your comments, Commissioner.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and although I do know it's in a very rough stage, I do know that there's a lot of attention to it because this application kind of, exposed some areas that need to be strengthened within the text of development guidelines within the rural settlement. So it's not an ideal situation for Avalon with a future land use. I think that, I know Special Hearts will be a great neighbor, I really do. But what this has done is, this has given the opportunity for everybody to understand how to move forward with this, to answer the voices of Avalon saying they don't like to be down here all the time. Well, this is that opportunity to engage with the commissioner, to make sure that there's constant communication, and I know that it's not going to be put on this side. I know that it's something very important that they are working on now. But that's everything I have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Boers, and let's go back to Commissioner Gray.
Thank you. A question for staff, and I don't know if this should be Alberto or I'll let you take a crack at it. I know we talked about the special exception, and Alberto just gave quite a good explanation overall. I just want to make sure, because be really clear on this, just ask it simply, why is a special exception not allowed?
It's primarily because of the density. Because if they had an additional 6 acres, then it wouldn't be a question. And then the only reason that they would need a special exception perhaps is because of the educational component. But it's because of the 5th unit, right? The acreage it wouldn't allow it.
So is this a legal constraint on the county?
Well, it's just not, it's not permitted under the code, and it's not, the special exception wouldn't permit it. It's not, Jason, I don't know if you want to add it, because
So
you're
when you
part
say
of the
legal
conversation.
constraint, what do you mean?
So you're saying, I'm trying to get to the meat of why the special exception was not allowed. I understand it because of density, but somebody made the decision about the density, so.
Well, so there's several components of the request. In totality, it does not fit in any use in our table that would allow it as a special exception. And that's why they have to go through this process, so that the use that it does fall within can be permitted.
It's not one of the listed special exceptions.
I understand, but
It's not on
isn't the
list.
point of a special exception to do things that aren't in the table?
No, actually,
Okay.
maybe in some municipalities it could work like that, but for us, it has to specifically be a use, and for that use, it has to be spelled out as a special exception.
Right.
So if I could just add to that there are really 3 different things going on here. One is we're dealing with a 30-something-year-old code that didn't anticipate this. The second thing is the density, and then the third thing is the educational component. And so in order for all of those things to work together, this is what is giving you the staff recommendation that's before you now.
However, what Jennifer Monroe said is that this would fit for a special exception in Vision 2050.
Right. Vision 2050 does solve most of those problems.
Well, and just as we said in the earlier example, we're trying to put the cart before the horse here. When we're talking about Lone Palm Road, we're trying to make decisions about something in anticipation that it would happen. And if you'd asked us 3 months ago, we'd be saying Vision 2050 was going to be voted on 2 months from now, but now that's not the case. So, these types of concerns are not arbitrary or irrational or speculative, Mr. Geller, because things happen. And so when we have to consider the possibilities of these unforeseen circumstances, because we're being asked to vote on certain things before other laws are in place that would protect the concerns of the residents in the first place. And we've done it now. This is the second issue of a total of 4 in the agenda today, and I know that the staff have a much better understanding of all of this, but we specifically tabled this to go back to staff looking for a special exception to do this, and the idea that the staff couldn't come back with something as an alternative when you clearly have a very dissenting, group of people here that are all looking for some type of pretty specific and simple answer to a question is very disappointing in that regard. And Mr. Gill, I'm not asking a question, I'm just referring to the statement you made earlier that I don't think it's wise to particularly consider that addressing these types of issues that might be speculative is unwise or arbitrary or irrational, because that's frankly what we do all the time. We're asked to do these types of things because we have to consider, and that's actually what a lot of both sides are asking us to consider is the speculative future of Special Hearts Farm and the future speculative decisions of what's going to happen in the rural settlement. We have to do I just don't think it's wise to consider it irrational to think about this being speculative. My other question, because I was asking since the last meeting, I realized I don't know as much about the rural settlements as possible, so I asked around, and the two people that I was advised to speak to are actually both in the room, and Mr. Wiggins has already spoken, and he was the person identified as the expert on rural settlements, and the other one is Mr. Beagles. So Mr. Beagles, I wanted to ask, if you don't mind, I wanted to see if I could ask you a question. Sorry. So, Mr. Beagles,
do I need an attorney?
No, sir. I just wanted to ask, do you live in a rural settlement?
You'll have to speak up. This one's done quit working, and this one's beeping in my ear.
Do you live in a rural settlement now?
I live in a rural settlement, you're right.
So you're in a special place because you're proposing that we support Special Hearts Farm, but you also live in a rural settlement. I'm
Right.
interested in, how do those things, in your mind, conflict or complement one another?
Start with, it's up to the county commissioners to decide which way they want to go. And when you look at what is a rural settlement, there are options in that rural settlement. Yes, my ranch will one day, I hope, be a rural settlement where I can justify what will or will not be built on it. But at the same time, according to the law in Tallahassee, I can change that, come to y'all and change the zoning on that at any given time after it's voted on. So when you look at what is rural settlement and what that all in West Orange County was rural settlement at one time. And along came the freeze. And there went the orange groves. And when you stop and look at what we're looking at, it fits right in that area where it's in a rural settlement or where it's underneath a different ag. Due to the fact, if it's underneath ag, we can go home and start building. We don't need permits for what we want to do. But we decided to bring it through here as we was asked to do. If it's a bona fide agricultural operation, we can build that barn tomorrow morning without sitting here any longer and listening. In the same way, we can take and put it underneath tourism and still don't need no permits, but they did not want to do that. They did not want to make the neighbors mad. They wanted to work it out. And guys, this is what, our fourth time being here? Or fifth time being here. And it looks to me like somebody would decide what we can do and what we can't do. Because state laws says we can do this, this, and this under agriculture. It's under agriculture.
So I think we're about to decide what we can and can't do.
It's under ag. So,
Mr. Beagles, can I ask you one last question?
You're right.
If this project were being proposed in the rural settlement that you live near, would you approve it?
But we tried to work through not going those routes.
Mr. Geller, would you mind asking the question?
He asked if this were proposed in your rural settlement, would you support this?
Yes.
Thank you. I just had one other question, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair. David, I don't know if this is a question for you or for Jason, but we talked about the amendment language, the text amendment language, and I think I'm mostly following. So at some point, we're going to have a recommendation from staff that would be a a potential motion that someone would make. Normally, that would be you because it's in your district. Are we adding that text link, or can we add that text language to this motion?
So I asked those questions already,
Yeah.
and I was told that it can't be a condition of approval.
Right.
I would love to ensure that something that is never, I know I'm going to continue that fight to make sure that that happens, and I certainly know the commissioner is. And I know Avalon will continue to voice their concerns, so I don't think it is ever going to go away, and I think it will get added. I was hopeful that if a text amendment was initiated, that it would stop other applications from coming in while that text amendment was being reviewed. Unfortunately, it does not as well. So those are my only two concerns, but based off of Mr. Geller's involvement, his associate, Kurt Ardeman, they immediately started working on draft text amendment just to get it out, to get that communication going, but it has to be internal within Orange County. That's the applicant. Basically, the commissioner can get that started, but it's something that Orange County does internally. There's not a outside applicant to do that. So, I will say they entertained every possible option with the special exception. In fact, that was originally what they wanted to do. But, they were told that their application would not even be accepted with a special exception, so.
Well, Commissioner, I want to thank you for your hard work on this. I know, just kind of heard from other friends that you've had some sleepless nights on this, and appreciate you pushing hard on it. I just have one follow-up question, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind. It's of staff. And I think this might be of our county attorney, or Jason, you can tell me which one is the proper person to ask. I think I know the answer to this, but I feel like I want to ask it anyway, just to be safe. Is it possible to add language in this motion that we're about to see that specifically requests that Special Hearts is the exception to the rule and cannot be used as a precedent for other settlement change requests in the future?
Commissioner, as mentioned, I think that kind of goes without saying. That's already, a policy of ours. And it's on the record at this point that that's something that you all are concerned about. So I think it might be a bit redundant to put that in. But again, it's been vocalized, it's on the record. We know that that's been a ton of the discussion today.
I'm not asking if it can be redundant, I'm asking if it can be done.
I mean, we could put it on, you can add it on there, but it's I don't know what effect it'll have.
I don't know either.
And I'll just add procedurally, because if it's in the comprehensive plan, then it's a policy that we'll be able to look at and reference.
But we don't know if the comprehensive plan is going to be changed.
I just don't want to go in that direction just because of the fact that something comes in the future, then we're going to get blamed for not bringing this up when we didn't just remember about it versus it being a policy in a comprehensive plan that everybody sees.
I don't disagree, but can you tell me when the comprehensive plan is going to be updated?
Well, with Vision 2050, and that's kind of the current internal dialogue, is that if there is direction from the board to address this issue and to see what we can do to try to shore up, this issue, it would be Vision 2050, which is anticipated for late spring, early summer adoption.
So, Commissioner Bowers, I know it's redundant. I know it may seem silly. My instinct, going back to what your comment was in the last meeting, that this sets precedent one way or the other.
Right.
I'd still add that type of language, and I'm happy to repeat it.
If there was a way to be able to block applications until Vision 2050, I mean, if there's any way to do anything.
It may be completely useless language,
Yeah, but maybe useless language is it's something that the commissioners see when they see it at the next meeting, so they know that something's coming.
So just to wrap up, and I apologize for taking so much time, I'm very appreciative of everybody's comments. I think this is a very difficult decision. I think Special Hearts Farm is doing tremendous work in the community. I think the rural settlement Avalon is incredibly important. And I think we're all, kind of feeling the same challenge here. But when I asked people in the community that I trust who the two experts are on rural settlements in this community, they said George Wiggins and Bobby Beagles. And so if they both agree that this is something we should move forward with, then I have a hard time opposing that personally.
So one thing to note is their development criteria that was up on that original slide with the square footages and stuff. A concern of everyone's was what if they left, right? What if they left, they sought the institutional. So this PD is restricted to that. So any change whatsoever in that program right there will require them coming back through here, which is about, that complements what a special exception does, right? Special exception defines what they can and can't do. They have it up there. They've worked with staff. The applicants worked with staff, with the community, listened, voiced, cut their program down to fit the needs of Avalon. So, I do feel better with the language on that. Not starting something that could potentially one day be something much bigger.
Okay, well, with that, I believe that we've reached the portion where we need to entertain a motion.
So if I were to just put a note at the bottom regarding a future text amendment, how would I word that? Just,
You could direct us to look into it, is that?
or continue, because I know it's being looked into now. Obviously, kind of came late, so they couldn't move quick enough, but just continue exploring all possible options for better protections through a text amendment. Okay.
Yeah. So I just noticed that Commissioner Evans has some additional questions or comments.
I just want to articulate that I would not be in favor of making some uncertain additional recommendation without having gone through the process. I think there's a real process for making amendments to the comprehensive plan, and I think that's the appropriate thing. I think what's before us is the application. I agree I acknowledge the sentiment. I just want to say that I don't think that's a solve, and I think just makes things more complicated and creates a very inconsistent set of expectations in the
Understood.
I agree.
Could we just make sure it's put into the staff report, moving forward, going to the next level?
It was discussed today, so it will be as part of the synopsis of the discussion.
Okay, because that's I know it's extremely important for the residents myself. With that said, I'd like to make a finding of consistency with the comprehensive plan and the recommendation for adoption and of the requested institutional future land use, make a finding of consistency with the comprehensive plan and recommend approval for the Special Arts Farm Plan Development Special Plan Use dated received July 15, 2024, subject to the following 19 conditions of approval, including one waiver from Orange County listed in the staff report. Do we have those conditions to put up, or?
It's just what's in the staff report.
Okay.
So the condition is for parking.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. The motion passes unanimously. Okay, and with that, let's take a 10-minute break. Thank you.